Hey guys, it's the end of March right now, and I thought I was going to be the perfect time right now to show you guys how I graft. And don't take this as like a must do in terms of uh, how you graft. Grafting, it's pretty much like an artwork. You kind of take what you know, you kind of modify it, and you do what's comfortable for you. So I'm going to show you guys what I'm going to be doing. I'll be doing a cleft graft, but I've been grafting for about 25 years. Um, Through that whole time, I start off with like veneer grafts. There was a period where I used a lot of veneer grafts. There was a period where I used a lot of bark grafts, and currently right now I'm using just mostly like cleft grafts. So just don't think of this as what's the kind of the best graft to use. It's more like hope you guys get from this video. It's just like little tips and tricks here and there that you guys might not have thought about. Not really the technique, but just what you guys might have thought about in terms of doing things that might kind of help increase the chances of a take. And there's certain slices I do and stuff that's probably not even proper in terms of what I do. It's just kind of more or less what I'm comfortable with. So let me just kind of start off with what I have. So let's talk about the tools right now what I'm going to be using. So, and over the years I've used everything from yeah, you know, everything from kitchen knives to X-Acto blades to saran wrap to parafilm. These days what I'm using is pretty much I have a grafting knife. I have what would be right here is a buddy tape. This is garden tape. This called garden tape, but it's not sticky or anything like that. I'm just using that to kind of wrap around it to make it more kind of hold it in place to graft. I do this with a lot of evergreens. If you're grafting stone fruits, you probably just need like buddy tape. Stone fruits, the hardwood grafts, a bit more just kind of when you place it in, they just kind of stay in place. And then I have a marker right here. Along with that, I have a bottle of alcohol. This is a bit overkill. The size is a bit too big. I usually have a much smaller bottle, which I put alcohol in. And then I have, what is this? It's like a wood saw. And you might notice I don't have a pruning kind of pruners on this. I don't like using the pruners much because when I cut with those, especially with some of these more evergreen tropicals, whether it's like avocados or mangoes, I feel like they tend to kind of damage or at least break, kind of damage one side of the stem. It's like it's just squeezing one side where that side doesn't have the blade. So I get a bunch more cleaner cut with this, and I'll show you guys when I use this. Okay, in terms of scions, right now it's towards the end of March right now. We're in California, and for the most part I usually don't really recommend grafting right now with local scions, like local California scions, just because for the most part lots of them are still blooming. If you could get your hands on some fresh Florida scions, they're pretty much kind of close to the end of their blooming season, and that would be a good time to graft those if you could get some fresh ones. But I always recommend lots of the shipped scions from Florida. They're very tough to graft, much more tougher to graft than local scions, but they kind of gone through the blooming phase already. This is local scions, and usually I wouldn't be grafting any local scions right now, but I got this from a buddy of mine, Jeremy. Shout out to Jeremy. He's growing some trees in the greenhouse, and that seems to prevent some of the blooming. So I have pretty good faith that these will not end up being blooming blooming scions. You know, I think it's going to push, and I think it's going to push vegetation. It's not going to push bloom buds. Okay, and that's why I'm using this. Usually I kind of wait a little bit more later into the season, especially when I'm dealing with local scions. You know, local scions give you much more greater take. Okay, first thing I'm gonna do is knife. I am gonna just kind of sanitize some of this. You know, that's what my spray bottle here is for. Wipe this down. And like I said, I've used everything from, you know, X-Acto knives to kitchen knives. This is an actual grafting knife, but you know, a lot of, so don't kind of take that into terms. You're starting off, you might want to just use what you have if you don't want to make investments into these products. Next thing I am sanitizing is this. And you're gonna notice me do something that's a bit different, and I do this with mostly just mangoes. Like I said, you're working with stone fruit. Lots of this stuff you don't really need to do, but I am working with mangoes. Lots of my grafts tend to get, when you work with mangoes, they tend to be very fungal prone. Okay, so I like to just kind of spray where I'm making this cut. Then I'll wipe it down. Don't let this sit for too long. You know, it is alcohol, but I usually do that to areas I plan to make my cuts in. Okay, and where I'm going to graft right now, and this is just kind of your own preference and stuff, but I am choosing this section right here. Notice like this section right here, there's no like huge concentration of buds, right? So when I put my graft in, I wrap it. It's a bit more cleaner, and when stuff begins to push, it doesn't get mistaken for the scions, and you don't have any of the rootstock buds that push out. I usually don't like grafting kind of like where it's too dense of buds. You know, I like it where there's this section where there's much more clearer and less buds. So that's what I'm gonna be choosing. Same thing with this one. Be choosing that. Okay, so here it goes. This is what I'm gonna be doing with this. You're gonna notice that I don't have any pruners with me. I like using this. I get a much more cleaner cut. Usually with the pruners, there's always one side which gets kind of squeezed, and I don't like the damage that does with it. So I think this is called like a saw wood block or something like that. Okay. I just hold one side, and here you go. And you can see how clean that is, you know. And then if I want to, I just do a little bit of kind of scraping, kind of just making sure it's all nice and clean. Okay. I'll be doing my first graft. I'll be doing a cleft graft on this one. Like I say, I recommend you guys kind of do what you're more comfortable with. I've done this for so many times. I cut myself in all kinds of various ways, and there's been stages during this last 25 years where I liked one type of graft and I was comfortable with one. Then, you know, did that for like maybe 5 years, and then I would do another one where I was more comfortable with. And same thing, it's, you know, kind of bit of like art, what you like, what you're comfortable with using. So I'll be doing a cleft graft on this. So, you know, the proper way to kind of make some cuts. This it's more like what you're comfortable with, I would say, because I've had held I had held the rootstock like this before and push. I held all sorts of different way. I have come to kind of like this current way that I'm working with right now. I tend to hold it like this. I'm actually squeezing it a bit, so when I'm pushing down, it doesn't kind of like splinter off when I'm squeezing it. And this is what I've been more comfortable with. I have not cut myself with this way yet, but I've cut myself all sorts of way with all sorts of different graft, because I feel like when anything slips on this, all it takes is kind of just you with your reflex, just kind of move your fingers, and at worst maybe you lose a little tiny tip of your kind of fingers, but even that is probably rare. I mean, I had times where I cut myself deep, especially when my hand is below. So that's what I'm doing now. But again, I would say it's what you're kind of more comfortable with, what you end up being comfortable with. So here it goes. So I am squeezing a bit with these two, so when I'm pushing this down, it does not splinter. Okay, that's gonna be my cleft graft cut. Okay, here's the scions. I kind of cut away from myself, but people also cut. You have a bit more control. You cut towards in. It's just what you're comfortable with. I've always been kind of comfortable with kind of doing kind of strong, long slices away from me. So. And we'll see. I'm gonna put this in. If it works well, then I'll just kind of wrap it. If not, then I have to slice it again. And this one seems pretty perfect. It was like a much more narrow kind of cut on the scion, but sometimes I have to make it a bit more longer, just depending on how things go. But this one feels like it's was kind of almost like a perfect cut. Okay. Next up, I am using buddy tape. So this is how the buddy tape looks like. It's become one of my favorite tools to use. And it's very stretchy. There's no kind of like strength to this. So when you're wrapping it, it's just very kind of pliable. It doesn't really add much pressure. It doesn't really add much pressure to the union. Lots of people use other things to kind of apply that pressure. So lots of people have used, like, say, zip ties, whatnot. I have never experimented with zip ties. I use this garden tape. Again, this is just garden tape. It's not sticky or anything like that. It's just more to kind of hold the grafts in place. And the good thing with this too is I could write on this. So I'm going to write this. Usually I like to put the name of the graft, the name of the variety, and when I made it. So and in terms of markers, you guys have to use either like an oil-based kind of marker or like some kind of garden marker. Sharpies and stuff, they don't really last in the sun. They just kind of fade away very, very quickly. Okay, so what I'm going to be doing with this now I'm going to be adding additional pressure to this union. And again, I do this with evergreens, avocados, mangoes, but like if I was doing this with a stone fruit, right, I would usually be done right now already. That's it. I don't really need to apply pressure. It's like working with the hardwood is a lot more different, and they kind of tend to hold in place pretty well. Okay, so what I'm doing is kind of just stretching this even more, giving it pressure. And then I kind of just tie this off. Good thing is I have the name of the graft on it, and I found this the most useful, especially if you're making tons of graft. And there's been times where I'm grafting like 20-30 different scions, and this kind of helps me tag everything too, because lots of times too maybe your grafts don't take, you don't need a fancy label on it or anything yet until it takes. Okay, there goes that one. I'm gonna be doing the same thing. You guys can kind of just follow me. I'll probably not be narrating too much on it. So same thing on this. I'm gonna pick a spot here that doesn't have a large concentration of buds. I'm not gonna be grafting right here, grafting over here. And one of the reasons why, this one's already, these are my Laverne Manila rootstocks from 2023. And one of the reasons why is because imagine if you kind of wrap right here and there's a bunch of concentration of buds, and if the rootstock is pushing, it does take energy from the scion that would use for the scions to push out. So, and when you graft, like say right here, you'd be wrapping around it, you can't really see what it's doing. Okay, now to go back to this one, I'm gonna just make some, just kind of clean it up a little bit, Okay, again. And when you're making these cleft grafts, it's awesome if you can match both sides. But if you can't match both sides, make sure you match one side. It doesn't matter if the scion itself is a little bit thicker, a little bit thinner. At least get one side to match. I really did not like how this went in. I actually kind of pushed in too far, kind of damage the stem, where it just kind of break instead of this kind of remaining clean. And usually what's a good test if it's like if it kind of holds a bit, you know, if it holds a bit, that's usually a good test that at least it's kind of have the strength holding itself. This stuff is aligned. If you put it in and it just kind of flops right off, then you might want to rethink about doing your graft. Okay, so you know, I'm more coastal, so I have never covered my graft unless I'm like hitting like over 100 degrees, and it's just a lot more. It's not as dry and as hot here where I am, but I could see the benefits of people covering the graft so you're in a much more hotter area. I'm not, like, for the most part, I have rarely ever had the need to cover my graft, especially when you're working with buddy tape. Buddy tape does a good job of sealing in the moisture, but letting in, you know, letting in and out kind of the oxygen and stuff. So I never had to really deal with kind of covering my grass with buddy tape. I've done it in the past, maybe on other type of fruit trees and stuff. When I wasn't using buddy tape, you know, you could put a bit of plastic on it, or you know, some like a bag or anything like that. But I just never had the need for it here, but I could see the benefits of it. So, okay, well, I hope this kind of helped you guys in terms of grafting, kind of just seeing a few tips and tricks here that might be helpful, that may help make your grafts a bit more successful. Like I said, I'm using a cleft graft right now. I'm kind of pretty comfortable with it. That's what I've been favoring the last you know, 5 years with kind of mangoes and stuff. But again, it's just what you're comfortable with. I mean, I used to use quite a bit of veneer grafts and quite a bit of bark graft. So, you know, it's a matter of how comfortable you are with it and your slices, and then that's kind of what makes a lot of your grafts take, you know. So anyway, guys, this was a pretty detailed how-to in terms of at least how I approach my grafting, and I hope some of what you've seen might help you guys with your projects. All right, till next time.